You're watching The Foundation. My name is Timothy Parker, and today I'm with my friends Michael Johnson and Steven Fiora. And
Hello.
you want to say hello?
Hello.
And today we're going to take a moment to talk about ourselves a bit so you can know who we are and what background we come from. Because everyone comes from a different background, a different kind of experience,
Different walk of life.
a different walk of life. And today I want to take a special moment of time to talk about Fiora. Because he's a husband and father, and he's done a lot of different things that I can't even fathom of doing myself. So, Mr. Steven,
Well, like we said in the last episode, is we want to give you guys a chance to get to know us. So we're going to talk about ourselves for a little bit, but by any means, that doesn't mean we're taking glory from God, because God gets the glory for all of our successes. Um, anyway, so my background, I'm from Northern California. Um, I have a father and mother, and
you don't say.
yeah. Um, And anyways, two brothers. Actually, I have four brothers, two half brothers. Um, one half brother I haven't seen in many, many, many years, but another one, his name's Lewis. He lives in Nevada. And anyways, from Northern California, I grew up in the mountains, um, outside of town. Basically, I was the kid. And actually, me and my brothers, we were the kids that grew up without kids around, I guess. When we were home, because it was all vineyard land and farms. Um, my grandfather, my grandparents on my mom's side owned cattle, horses, sheep, all that. And then they have their ranch. And then my grandfather or my grandparents on my dad's side, they own a vineyard and property and all that. So anyways, uh, yeah, it was a good. It was. I was raised with work ethic and morals when it comes to that. Did I enjoy it all the time? No, not necessarily, but. Because when you get out of school and you do your homework and they say, "Hey, you got to go work in the vineyard for at least 2 hours today," it's like, okay, but you learn hard work, and um, we didn't grow up in the church, or I didn't grow up in a church. Uh, my parents told me that they're Catholic. Um, didn't really go. I don't remember. I don't recall any time actually going to church as a kid.
Mhm.
Uh, but yeah, so anyways, but it's that's pretty much my background in that. I'm currently working at the state prison with Tim over here,
Mhm.
and been there for almost 10 years now. And anyway, so the reason why I got into that career, and everybody as a kid either wants to be like a firefighter or like a cop, right?
Yeah, someone that
At
does
one
really
point,
cool things.
not everybody, but most kids, at least for me,
Mhm.
at one point I wanted to be a firefighter.
Mhm.
At another point, I wanted to be a cop. And then when I graduated high school, getting, I ended up working in a casino for a while, and I ended up seeing a couple guys that I went to high school with that I really admired because they were growing up with them, going through school with them. There was a couple of them that had like straight A's, really good grades, played football with them throughout all the years. And you see those people and you think, you know what, they're going to be really successful in life. And then I saw them like 6 years after high school, after graduating high school. Haven't seen them for a while. And then you see them, and yeah, they were drugged out. They You couldn't really understand when they spoke because they were just so high or messed up in the head or whatever. And anyways, that hit me hard. So that's when I decided, I'm going to get into law enforcement. Um, Went into a police academy in California, Napa Valley Police Academy, and I ended up. It was a year long, and anyways, I ended up after the police academy. I put myself through the police academy, and which I I guess it was frowned upon or something. I ended up applying um, at Clear Lake PD, and with like 30 others, had my post. And when you have your post certificate, you don't have to do a lot of the testing. You kind of just jump into like interview,
Hmm.
and which was really nice. But tested with probably like 30 people. I came in second, and um, they said, "Hey, you're on standby. We're gonna hire this guy, and if this guy doesn't pass probation period, then you'll be hired." I'm like, "Oh, cool." Well, I knew the guy that they hired, really solid dude. I went to high school with him, and I kind of hung out with him outside of school afterwards. But really good guy, and has a good head on his shoulders, so I kind of knew he was going to be successful. But yeah, so did that after I was on the standby list, because that's really the only place I wanted to work, I guess, up there. Um, to backtrack, when it comes to like my Christian background, I didn't grow up and I wasn't raised in the church. Um, I was raised in the mountains, hunting, where I rode dirt bikes and quads. I didn't really hang out with kids outside of school other than like be in town for maybe an hour, and then I would go be at home with my brothers, my
Hmm.
two brothers. Uh, anyway, so with the wife, um, we dated in high school for 4 years. Uh, after we broke up in high school, after I graduated, we ended up becoming like really, really good friends. Um, and we would just check up on each other for like at least once a month, and we talk for hours. But we did that throughout the years. So she ended up having a kid with this other guy that is he still lives in Clear Lake, California. But anyways, she moved to Havasu, and so back to my Christian background. The reason why I started going to church is because I started dating her, and her dad was a pastor, and he owned a church in Clear Lake, in Lake County. And he said, "Hey, if you're gonna date my daughter, then you're gonna work on your faith." I said, "Oh, yes, sir."
Hmm.
So I started going to church. I didn't really believe in. I mean, I believed I was one of those like on the fence kind of things, right?
Yeah.
I believed that there was a higher power, but I didn't know if it was a God, or I didn't know who Jesus was and all that. I was like I think that's like the normal confusion of belief. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, so I was like that for a while. Uh, and um, I ended up really getting strong with faith once I started having like testimonies. You have those testimonies throughout your life that you can't explain other than there is a God and God used you for a reason.
Hmm.
You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Uh, anyway, so um, I'll get into my main testimony that really pushed my beliefs in a minute. But yeah, so me and Ange, we broke up after I graduated high school. She moved to Lake Havasu after the police academy, and after being in construction. I worked construction for a little bit afterwards. We decided we're going to start dating again. We were 14 or 12 hours away from each other, I made enough money where I could come here like every other weekend, I guess. So, anyways, she wanted me to move here to Lake Havasu, and I said, "Well, I'm not going to move unless I am working in a job in the career I want to work in, which is law enforcement." So she actually applied at the prison for me, and they called me. They called me on a Wednesday. I was actually driving a truck for the construction company, and she called me on a Wednesday, or they called me on a Wednesday. They said, "Hey, you have a phone interview on Thursday, and then we need you down here for the physical PT test on Friday," which was like a mile and a half run, push ups, sit ups, all that stuff. It's different now, but um, said, "Okay." So I packed a bag of clothes and said, "Okay." I quit my job and headed down. Oh, and then they said, "Hey, you're going to be in the academy on Monday if I pass everything."
Hmm.
So I said, "Okay, cool, done." So I did that. So I ended up driving down and did the test, passed everything, and then my background didn't clear until like that Wednesday. So I couldn't start the police academy, or sorry, not the police academy, but the correctional officer academy.
Hmm.
And on Monday, I had to start it on Wednesday, but they said I couldn't because the academy already started, so I had to wait for the next one. I said, "Okay, well, I need a job, so I'm not going to sit here and do nothing." So I actually worked at Complex. I actually worked at Complex for a while as a trainee for that whole academy process until the next academy started, and that's when I joined the academy there. But we've been in Havasu since 2014 or 2015, or I have. She moved here in 2015, but uh, yeah. So my faith has grown like substantially since I've been here. And God's been using me in amazing ways. Um, I think my first testimony of that, my first major testimony that was like, hey, there is no other reason this happened other than, you know what, God used me, right? Um, when I was working construction in 2014, uh, I was part of, so there was this place called Mountain. It burnt down. There was a big fire. It burned down like pretty much the whole town up there. And what the county did is, or I guess what the state did, is they hired a whole bunch of construction companies with truck drivers throughout the state. And we all got assigned to this town for the cleanup crew. So they would have all these construction companies and all these workers come in. They'd separate the debris of the burnt buildings. So it was they'd separate the wood, they separate the metals and all that stuff, and then we would all line up at like 7 in the morning. All the truckers, we would have a GPS that's assigned to us, and it has a list of all the areas that we need to go to, and it had the kind of debris that we were picking up and loading or getting loaded in our trucks. So then we would have to go to a certain dump site for each kind of debris. And anyway, so I was assigned to that. My boss had a house up there, and I mean, God blessed him with not getting his house burnt down because he protected his home. Yeah.
Wow.
And I don't know if my boss was a true believer, of the Lord, but or a man of faith. But yeah, and my boss knew that the fire was going through the town, so he went up there. He had two houses. He had one in Calistoga, which was like an hour south, and then he had one in Cobb Mountain. But he ran up there, I guess, when the fire was going on. He turned on all sprinklers and all water systems at his house, outside, and threw sprinklers on top of his roof, and his house ended up standing after the fire. So, but anyway, so me and my boss went up there and we checked out his house and we said, hey, you know what? He knows a lot of people on the street that he lived on, and he said, hey, let's do an inventory of all the houses on this road so we could tell people.
Mhm.
I was like, okay. So we went through the road and we did an inventory on all these burnt houses, what was burnt and what wasn't, what addresses were still standing, so um, that way people that he knew he could let them know, right?
Mhm.
Uh, so one house that I remembered because we were talking about it, we were doing an inventory and there's this huge tree out in front of this beautiful home, right? And it was this house that had like um, this pretty steep driveway going down to the house, and then you have the house on the left, and then when you look in there, you have a little shed on the right in the corner of the property. But you have this huge tree that fell down, and we were talking about it and said, "Hey, they're very lucky," and because this huge tree fell right in between that shed and the house,
Mm.
and didn't damage anything. Probably damaged the concrete or asphalt on the ground. You
Well,
know,
I would have that than my roof or windows or my entire wall. So,
Yeah, but we were looking at it, it's like, man, these guys are really lucky. It's crazy. And
mm,
like I'm talking massive tree right between there, like the branches and all that, like barely missed the house and the shed.
mm,
Okay, you don't see any vehicles there or anything because I mean I'm assuming they evacuated. But one second. So, anyways, we were talking about it for a second, then we moved on, right? So, uh, that day, I ended up going to Calistoga, my boss's house, down there. Well, we went to Calistoga to work on a job down there as well. But we were sitting at my boss's house down there in Calistoga, and they closed down the road to go back to my house because of the fire. Okay, so they shut down the road, and I couldn't. And in order to get home, I would have to go up through Ukiah, Mendocino County, which added like 3 hours of a drive or 4 hours of a drive to me to get home. Whether I mean it would you normally be like an hour and a half or an hour to get to my house or to get home. It was going to be 4 or 5.
Right.
And anyway, so my boss said, "Hey, why don't you stay here? We'll wash your clothes and we'll get you all set up and everything, you know. But why don't we wash your clothes here and you stay the night and we'll get back to work tomorrow." Uh, and remember, I'm not a man of strong faith right now, right? And I'm actually like probably I was probably like 22, 23 maybe,
Okay.
or like 25, 26, I guess.
Okay.
But um, yeah, so something told me, you know what, you just go home. Just take the drive. So, and I had the company pick up, so it wasn't like my own gas that I was spending. I was like, yeah,
Mm.
you know, I'll go home. It's like, well, it's late. You'll get there late, and you still gotta be back in the morning. I'm like, yeah, it's fine. I got it. So, anyways, I end up driving, right, and it's really really late. I get up to Ukiah, which was like 3 hours away, I guess. But get up to Ukiah, and you know, I'm like, okay, well, I need food, right? Hungry. Go to McDonald's, and it's mall kind of setting,
Mm.
right? Go to this McDonald's, and I get the food, and I'm sitting in the bed of the truck in the parking lot, and like I said, this is like 3 hours away from Cobb or Calistoga. So I'm sitting in the parking lot, and it's pretty late at night, and I'm just like people watching. There wasn't much people there, but there was like a couple. But there was an older couple with a vehicle that was full of stuff inside their vehicle, like they were living in their vehicle, right?
Mm.
Uh, the lady there, she's like upset, you know, kind of in tears and stuff. They're in there. It seems like they're worried, and I'm just eating my food, not thinking much about it. I'm just kind of like listening and stuff. Anyways, so the older gentleman, he comes over and he says, "Hey, excuse me, sir, does the side of your truck say Middletown on it?" And it says Dan Bush Company.
Mm.
Middletown. I'm like, yeah. It's like, do you work in Middletown? I said, yes, I do. He said, okay, well, we're from Cobb Mountain, and you know, we got evacuated and we have nowhere to go. I said, oh, okay. I'm sorry to hear that. And then he said, have you been up there? I said, yes, actually, me and my boss, we actually went up there and did inventory on like these 2 or 3 streets. And I had the street names written down and everything. I said, yeah, we went on these streets and did inventory. And they said, oh, that's, uh, so you know what's burnt down and what's not? I said, yeah, for the most part. My boss has the list of houses and addresses, but yeah. And he said, well, that's where we live.
Mm.
And I'm like, oh, okay. Um, said, well, I mean, I can't promise that I'll remember your house, but um, you could, if you give me a description, maybe I could tell you if your house is standing or not, over the area. But I don't live on Cobb, so it's really descriptions are a little hazy to me, you know.
Yeah.
So, anyways, he says, okay, well, we have a pretty steep driveway where our house is on the left, and we have a little woodshed up there with a big tree on top of the driveway.
Mm.
And I'm like, oh, well, I mean, conveniently, me and my boss, we actually were sitting outside of your house talking about it. He's like, oh, and then the lady comes over, she's like, oh, is it okay? What's going on? And, he says, and I tell him, like, we were talking about how lucky your house is because that huge tree out front, it fell and it went right between your house and your shed. And the branches and everything just barely missed by like probably a foot. And then nothing's damaged at your house. So they break down crying. They're holding each other, you know, and like I remember it was like it was yesterday. But um they start thanking the Lord. And like I said, I wasn't really a man of God at this point, right? But
Mhm.
they started thanking the Lord, And then, I'm just like still sitting on the bed of the truck. Just I'm glad I can help, Um, thinking it was, like, oh, that's cool, So, they're holding each other and they're in tears, bawling because they thought they lost everything, you know.
Mhm.
Um, anyways, and then they said, "Hey, can we pray for you?" I said, "Yeah, sure, all right." I thought it was, when you first get prayer from somebody random that you don't know, you think it's weird or whatever. But
Mhm.
I'm like, okay, I guess. Okay, and then I ended up getting prayer from them, and they thanked the Lord for sending an angel to them.
Mhm.
And I said, and I was like, okay. And they said, thank you for sending an angel to us. And um, he delivered a message for us, and thank you for protecting our home. And anyways, it was an amazing feeling I felt when they did that. You know, later on in life, when I started reading the Bible and getting strong with faith, I read that, God uses angels as messengers.
Mhm.
That's one purpose for them,
Mhm.
right? And and God used me as a messenger for these nice people.
Right.
Uh, but yeah, so I ended up going home, and then like probably a month later, my boss lives down the road from them. A month later, they stopped me when I was driving by, and they asked me to go in there and have dinner with them, which I did, and not at the moment, but we planned it and stuff,
Yeah.
exchanged numbers and stuff. But yeah, and just humble, peaceful feeling inside that home, especially with burnt buildings all over the place.
Mhm.
You walk in that building and it's just so humble, you know, and just mind blowing how comfortable you are in there.
Mhm.
And this is also before I was a man of God.
Yeah.
But yeah, but after thinking about it and after reading the Word and getting to know Jesus and being on my path now, like there's no other explanation for that I can think of other than convenience, you know, like what a coincidence,
Yeah.
like that's the only thing you can think of, but it's not that.
I.
Like something told me, which was God,
Mhm.
these humble people, um, by grace, God protected their home, right?
Right.
They prayed for it. God protected their home through like the scorching fires. Looks like an apocalypse up there.
Mhm.
And this one beautiful home was standing, even with the tree falling right in between their houses, and God protected it, right? Um, and then they kept their faith throughout this whole thing. They held strong to the faith. They
Mhm.
were courageous in faith, right? And they they prayed, and then God used me to answer their prayers. You know,
Mhm. Right.
I could have just stayed there and been comfortable and fell asleep or had a good
Yeah.
night's rest.
Right.
Instead, I drove 4 hours, and I'm not giving myself glory for this at all. Like
Mhm. Mhm.
but something told me to go home, and I believe it was God now. I believe it was God. Something told me to go home, and I did. Something told me, hey, after all, out of all, through all the towns that I passed, and all through all the fast foods, I don't like McDonald's. You know, I don't like McDonald's at all. But something told me, hey, stop here, get some McDonald's, park
Mhm.
here. You know what? Sit on the bed of your truck instead of driving
Yeah.
because it's late at night. And like all of that, all the pieces that were put in place. Okay, there's no explanation other than, you know what? God led me to them to deliver a message, you know,
Mhm.
and by grace they were saved and protected by the Lord.
Absolutely. Amen.
You know, that was like my first testimony. That was my first time where it was like, and after having dinner with them, and they kind of explained it, like this is what happened, like, and I was going to church, and you know, um, after that I did go to church, and I got told to stand up on stage and explain this testimony, you know, so everybody can hear it. Because it was rough for a lot of people, and it was really emotional for a lot of people. It was emotional just driving and doing inventory on these houses because you just think like, oh my gosh, people lost everything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right.
Um, but yeah, so that's really when I was like, you know what, there is a God, and I can't say I fully understood who Jesus was or what he did when he died for our sins, and all, but that's when I started learning. That's when I started like, there's a God, and I need to start, learning about him and read the Bible and go to church and all that because it was an amazing feeling, you know.
Absolutely.
Um, but yeah, so fast forward to now, getting stronger in faith, reading the Word and all that. I ended up God spoke to me in church one day. This was about 2 years ago now, or a year and a half maybe now. But God spoke to me in church and said, first time I actually got that kind of encounter with the Lord. But said, you need to be a pastor. I'm sitting there, this guy,
Okay.
my mouth is bad. I have a sailor's mouth. I have a lot to correct. I don't know. I haven't read the Bible all the way. I haven't read the Bible like part way. Like what I know is from what the pastors taught me, and you know, um, but I'm saying, okay, well, are you sure this guy? And then I heard it again, and this time with like some power behind it.
With some
It's
authority.
like you're going to be a pastor. I'm like, okay.
Oh. Yes, sir.
Yes, 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 sir. And but I heard that, and then it's like, okay, well, and I was quiet. It was they were baptizing people and at church that day, and um, I didn't get baptized because I didn't feel like it was the right time. But anyways, I was quiet, and people kept asking, "Hey, what's wrong? What's on your mind? What's going on?" I'm like, "I'm good." Then when we were driving home, I told the wife, like, she's like, "What is wrong with you?" I'm like, "Well, this is what happened," and I explained it, and she was like, we're turning around, and you're gonna go talk to Pastor Tim, and you're gonna tell him what happened. I'm like, do I? I'm like, really? She's like, yeah, we're doing it. It's important. So we did, and um, yeah, I've been working towards being a pastor for some time now, and I won't go into like a whole bunch of details yet because that's to come. But
Yeah.
but step one was to correct my actions as how I act and how I act,
Hmm.
how I hold myself, and I feel like I've been doing really really well with that, and I'm at a good spot. So, but that's where I'm at now. So, um, and I think it's time to be able to, you know, while I'm still continuing on my path, because I'm not perfect by any means,
Hmm.
could help people with theirs, or maybe guide them a little bit with stuff I've experienced. Um, yeah.
Very well. Thank you.
Mm.
Um, uh, Thank you, Stephen, for sharing. I've never heard that testimony before, and I'm glad they came up with it on me because I get a little teary-eyed for a second. But that, that's wonderful, and I know you already have a bunch of different stories that we're gonna go through, a bunch of different episodes because we have a lot to talk about.
Mhm. Yeah, no spoilers.
No spoilers, because I know we can talk for hours about what we experienced and how it started to make sense once we grew in our faith and once we are started discipling ourselves. So thank you for sharing. But you're you are now watching the Foundation, and that was the Steven Fiora story. And please join us again as we continue to grow in our faith.
Amen. So, yeah, thank you. Like I said, we just wanted you guys to get to know us. And if we were going to have a couple hour long episodes, then it'd be a little more detailed and elaborate, I'm sure, but for all of us. But yeah, I'm glad that we're all doing this together.
Me too.
Stay blessed.
Stay blessed.